Tensions are rising in the Middle East as Israel prepares to expand military operations in Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the Israeli military cabinet approved the plan on Sunday. It's described by one minister as an operation to, quote, conquer the territory. Thousands of reservists are being called up as part of the expanded operations. One senior Israeli security official saying all Palestinians will be moved to southern Gaza. Now, meantime, the Hostage Family Forum is warning that this move puts the remaining 59 Israeli hostages still being held at, quote, grave risk. The operations would not likely begin until after President Trump visits the Middle East next week. Joining us now to discuss, retired Admiral Adm Stav, who is a CNN military analyst and also former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, as well as a partner for the global investment firm, the Carlyle Group. Admiral, good to have you back with us. When we look at these plans, Israel's far-right finance minister, I was struck by some of his comments. He said, we're conquering Gaza to stay, no more in and out, and went on to say, it's time to stop fearing the word occupation. Do you see anything here that would stop a full occupation?
I really don't. If the Israelis decide they're going to do this, there are three big downsides for the Israelis. Number one, the hostages, which you just talked about. Hard to see them coming out alive from a massive occupation force. Number two, internationally, this is going to further isolate Israel because of the 2.2 million Gazans that are going to be kind of trapped here. Even if you try and push them south, the humanitarian crisis will just continue to unfold. And then number three, the impact on Israeli society itself. They're mobilizing reservists. They're largely a reserve force, Erica. So all of those people are walking away from their jobs, away from their businesses, coming on active duty. And here's the really bad news about occupations. You got to stay. You got to have a force. They've got to maintain order and discipline. You own the humanitarian aspects of all of this. I think it's going to be a big challenge for the Israelis. I hope they know what they're going to bite off here before they really roll in big ways.
You know, I want to dig in on each of those points. When it comes to the hostages, we know there is great concern among the families, especially because we also heard from Mr. Smotrich that if this expansion, when it starts, it, in his words, won't even stop an exchange for hostages. At this point, do you think these families have any sway whatsoever over the Israeli cabinet?
I think, unfortunately, we've watched their political capital gradually diminish for a couple of reasons. One is simply, and this is a good thing, that many of the hostages were released already. I think they're down to about 60 hostages, probably tragically only half of whom are still alive. So the numbers are much smaller. The political pressure is therefore reduced on the Netanyahu government. And then secondly, just with the passage of time and the frustrations building in the Israeli population, the sympathy for the hostages, I think, unfortunately, is diminished as well.
You talk about the humanitarian aspect here. So there was a discussion, U.S. and Israeli officials discussing this mechanism that would deliver aid to Gaza, but they want to bypass Hamas. The UN's Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Aid, OCHA as it's known, warned that this is dangerous in a statement saying that it would force civilians into militarized zones to get that aid, saying that they believe this threatens lives of not only civilians but of humanitarian workers as well. What do you think this plan would actually mean in terms of getting aid to Gaza and getting enough aid in?
I think it's going to be extremely difficult to move aid at the scale and scope and size that's going to be necessary if the entire Gaza Strip becomes a free fire zone, a battlefield, a big military force going in. And here's the military obligation of the Israeli Defense Forces. When you conquer a territory militarily, you are obligated under international law, under every aspect of the laws of war. You own the civilian population in terms of meeting their needs: food, water, education, electricity, medical care, all of that. So if Israel is going to launch a full-scale attack, they have to, under international law and the laws of war, provide for this population. 2.2 million Gazans half of America children under the age of 17.
It is a lot to process. Again, not expected to be implemented until after President Trump visits the Middle East next week. Of course, a lot of important meetings for him scheduled. He's going to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar as well. One would imagine this will be top of those discussions. Admiral, always appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica.